They told me. They called me that.
What did they call you?
They called me Doodle Britches. And they called me that from when I just remember always responding to that. But they claimed that I pooped in my diapers all the time. And back then it was cloth diapers, so that was a big deal. And apparently I pooped more than my brother. And they just thought that that was funny. But I think my grandmother, I think that was right. I think mother's mother is the one who said, "Oh, she's done a doodle." Well, then my dad picked up on that and started calling me Doodle Britches as a joke, and it stuck. And I still remember it was the year before I married. I was 24 years old in a store in Birmingham, and my mother hollers across the store, "Doodle Britches, look at this!" And I said, I still remember that.
So that really means poopy pants?
Yes. Yes, apparently that's why they call me that.
That's really funny.
So yeah, that was it.
What about, I noticed that with me, you're always like showing me things around the kitchen, or do you know how to do this? Have you ever mashed potatoes before? I guess why don't you tell me about something memorable that Nanny taught you that, you want to make sure that we know. Or you could just tell me why you think that you do those things to us. Did she do that to you?
Oh, I can tell you. I can tell you why I like to show you things around the kitchen, because she never really had me in the kitchen cooking. She wasn't really teaching me, and anytime I did become interested, about, ninth grade-ish, and my father was very insistent that I not just sit over there and let her serve us, that I go and help, and both to me and my brother. And so I would go in the kitchen, and she would just, in her way, in her nice way, she'd say, "Yeah, you can watch me," but she said, "You really don't learn until you do it yourself." But I would still watch her, like I would roll. We always made jelly rolls every Christmas to give to people as gifts, and her mother had a very good recipe, which I can share with you one day. But making a jelly roll is a lot harder than it looks. But my job, she was teaching me how to use a rolling pin, and how when they say roll the dough to a certain inch thickness, that this is how you do it, and you don't want to overwork the dough because it becomes tough. And what she loved about her mother's jelly rolls were that the dough was real fluffy. It was like an angel cake. It was real fluffy and so good. And then she could do her own thing. She could put all different kinds of her homemade jams in them. And then my job was to dust them with, when we got ready to wrap them, dust them with the powdered sugar. And had we, had it available, we could have done fancier things. Strawberries and, decorate the tops. But a lot of times we didn't. It was just a jelly roll.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I like to show y'all things because I felt like her response usually was, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're going to learn it when you really need to." But having been through newly married and knowing a couple of recipes I could get by, I wish I had known so much more, because I would have been much more economical. That was my thing. I could have been much more economical. But I guess for whatever reason, she didn't want me to fret over it. I think my dad really was pushing for me to, you got to learn to cook and clean and know what you're doing. But I think that's where he was coming from. When I've asked him about it before, that's where he's coming from is, well, a woman needs to know economically. If she marries a millionaire, who cares? But how many times are you going to marry a millionaire right off the bat?
Mm-hmm.
You just need to be smart about it and economical. That's why he was pushing for me. She, on the other hand, was looking at, don't feel as though you have to know it all when you get married. You don't. You won't ever. You just sort of have to dive in and go, because of her experience. They actually, when they married, they ran a hotel there in Hansville, and Mom, by default, became the cook. Well, she barely knew how to boil an egg. She did know how to boil an egg, but back then you did everything by hand. So if it was a pastry, you made it. And it was right, it was in Hansville, and people wanted a meat and three. So she had to, she burned her fair share of quail, learning to fry quail, because my dad would go hunt. She would come and have to cook whatever he got, for the customers that were staying there. And it was very small. I mean, you're only talking 10 people. But she said when 10 people are sitting there and they're hungry men waiting on breakfast, you got to scramble a whole lot of eggs and burn a whole lot of toast and burn the bacon and, it's a lot of timing. But then she said by the time Brian and I came along, she understood that, I'm fixing to feed a family of 4. I need it ready in an hour, and I only have this much money. So what do I, So it helped. But in her opinion, she learned more because trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
Where he was coming at it, you need to go on in there and help your mom learn how to cook. And I also observed Rosal cooking, who was a fabulous cook, but she never measured anything. And she was trying to show me and Mom one day how she fried quail and chicken. She did a wonderful fried chicken. It wasn't soaked in grease.
Mm-hmm.
And we would ask her, well, how much are you, what's the ratio of the flour, how much salt are you putting in there, whatever. I don't know. She said, I do it all. And so I remember distinctly telling Rosal, who was a fabulous country cook, I said, you must just love to cook. And she turned to me and Mom and said, no, I really don't. She said, I've just always had to do it. She was the oldest when her mom died when they were young. And so she became the default. The dad just said, Rosal, you're it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she learned to cook by fire, but she really didn't like it, which shocked me because she was wonderful and she was so patient and so just at home in the kitchen. That's how she showed her love to everybody, was to cook. But in reality, had she had her druthers, she'd go out and work in the garden before she would cook.